Saousane Bejjaji, and this is my final project on rainfall, temperature, and reservoir purpose on reservoir capacity in Morocco. So my research question is, does yearly rainfall, temperature, and reservoir purpose affect reservoir capacity in Morocco? The null hypothesis is that yearly rainfall, temperature, and reservoir purpose do not significantly affect the reservoir capacities, while the alternative hypothesis is that yearly rainfall, temperature, and reservoir purpose do significantly affect reservoir capacities. My data sources were the World Bank, WFP, and CHC, and Geodar for the temperature, rainfall, and dam and reservoir variables. The response variable is reservoir capacity in meters cubed in the millions, and predictor variables are yearly rainfall in millimeters, yearly temperature, and reservoir purpose, with two levels being irrigation or hydropower. So my motivation to conduct this study is to see what exactly motivates water management organizations to choose what type of reservoir attributes they will select for that region of Morocco. Specifically, why is because I am half Moroccan and my dad lives there currently. He retired there, and for fun, he likes to make like engineering prototypes, and he currently is working on this irrigation one that already has helped some farmers with who struggle with drought, and that has provided me some background knowledge on what this region in specific struggles with, and has inspired me to further help him maybe find some clues on what else he could do to help his country. So the pre-hoc visualizations, on the left here we have my distribution of rainfall, and as you could see, my sample sizes between hydroelectricity and irrigation are uneven. So that is already one limitation to my study. But furthermore, here's the distribution of rainfall, and it's not very even. It is pretty left skewed. We have more rainfall in the lower amounts, but that just could be because of the country's general rainfall levels. And then we have the distribution of rainfall by reservoir purpose. Again, it could just be because my sample sizes are not equal, but irrigation purpose reservoirs tend to have a higher amount of yearly rainfall than hydroelectric ones. And then here's the temperature distribution. I have much more even distribution of temperature than rainfall, or just more widespread. And here is temperature by reservoir purpose on the right, and as you can see, temperature does not have as much of a effect on the purpose of a reservoir. Here are my temporal visualizations. On the left we have monthly rainfall by year, and we see a steady increase. There was a jump from 2000 to 2010 in rainfall, and then a very steep decline after that. And then for temperature on the right, we have a gradual increase, and then the same at the same points where we have this peak from 2000 to 2010 is this little steady point of temperature, which I find interesting, and then a huge increase in temperature when there's a huge decrease in rainfall. So my spatial and response visualizations, on the left here we have a map showing my capacity by average rainfall. Warmer colors are less rainfall, and colder colors are more rainfall, and size shows the same variation. And on the right you can clearly see that my reservoir capacity, the response variable, is still not normally distributed, but it was even less normally distributed before I did the square root of it, which is why I chose to do the square root of it for parts of the models. So overall I made 4 models. 2 additive, 2 interactive. One of the interactive was with the square root of the response, and one of the additive was the same with the square root of the response, while the other 2 were just the regular response without the square root. And my additive model with the square root of the response had the strongest fit with an adjusted R squared of 0.7244, explaining over 72% of the variance in the square root of reservoir capacity. The p-value was also highly significant with a value of 2.2 to the negative 16, with an F statistic of 414.5 on 3 and 469 degrees of freedom. The baseline y-intercept of this model is the hydroelectric reservoirs, and that demonstrated an increase in the root square of reservoir capacity by 35.54 plus or minus 10.08 million root square million meters cubed for no increase in millimeters of rainfall or degrees Celsius of temperature. And it had a p-value of 0.000464, which was my third most significant p-value of all the relationships in this model. Rainfall showed the second, this is a typo, rainfall showed the second most significant slope of all these relationships. For every increase in millimeters of rainfall, reservoir capacity increased by 35.63 plus or minus 0.033 million meters cubed, the root square of that still, with a p-value of 0.00012, and temperature showed the weakest and least significant slope and relationship. For every increase in degrees Celsius, reservoir capacity increased by 35.66 plus or minus 0.543 million meters cubed, the root square of that. But it had a very insignificant p-value of 0.83, so that will be ignored. The irrigation purpose reservoirs displayed the most significant slope and relationship to reservoir capacity, but it also had the most shallow slope, as the capacity only increased by 5.84 plus or minus 0.9073 square root of the million meter cubed for every irrigation reservoir. So, as you can see, this p-value is the lowest between all of them. So irrigation definitely has the most effect in this model, and after that, rainfall, and after that, hydroelectric. So here is my residuals. As you could see, the residuals are definitely not fully normally just surrounded around the 0. We have some outliers here, and that is another limitation in my study, or that is explained by the limitations in my study with the uneven sample sizes for the categorical predictor variable and the uneven distribution of variables for my numeric response variable. But as you can see here, residuals, we got some outliers here, but there is still some clustering around the general lower 0 point here. And then in this, you could see again, there's outliers kind of pulling the trend. Same here with the residuals versus the leverage. There's some outliers here, but still, we still see somewhat of a trend. It's not like completely random. In the normal QQ plot here on the top right, you could see it's kind of like a stepping stone, showing just like not a smooth, how do I describe this? Not like a smooth variation of my my response variable. I'm guessing it's because of the maximum capacity not being normally distributed, I think is why we see this jaggedy line instead of a smooth line. And as a result, we have my linear model regression here. It is, as you could see, not too, we don't see too much variation. We see that hydroelectricity has a steeper slope and requires a larger reservoir capacity than irrigation does. Yes, but then again, this could be because of the uneven sample sizes. And among the 4 models tested, my second model provided the overall best fit. And my takeaways are that from this model, irrigation purpose reservoirs most significantly affect the capacities, as well as rainfall, yearly rainfall coming up in second place. However, I feel like this is not all in all true in reality because of my uneven sample size for the categorical variables. But all in all, I'm glad that I was in some way able to highlight the dominant role that precipitation plays in shaping reservoir attributes in Morocco and deciding their purpose, capacity, size, and what regions, I guess, need these reservoirs most. Thank you so much for listening.